This is the story of the traveling dollmaker. Don't turn off the light. The story took place in a very small village a long, long time ago. Little William walked to school along a familiar road when one day he passed something strange. In an open field that had long remained empty stood a dollmaker's caravan. The caravan was breathtaking, displaying realistic, lifelike, beautiful little boy and girl dolls, arranged neatly in colorful rows. William stopped and stared at the dolls, mesmerized, when the dollmaker stepped out from behind his dolls.
"Do you like my creations?"
asked the dollmaker.
"They're beautiful,"
responded William, unable to look away.
"Will you make me one?"
"No,"
said the dollmaker.
"they're far too valuable."
William pleaded and pleaded with the dollmaker. He said he'd steal. He'd sell all his possessions. He'd do anything if only the dollmaker would just make him a beautiful doll. Finally, the dollmaker responded.
"All right, but each of these dolls is based on someone I know. They're my greatest joy. If I were to make one for you, you'd have to give me a gift that's equally as valuable in return."
"Anything."
The dollmaker smiled wide.
"Bring me back the most valuable thing in your home, and I'll make you a doll."
"I don't have anything of value, but my father might."
"I'll make you a deal then,"
said the dollmaker.
"Tomorrow morning, bring me your father's greatest joy, and I'll make you a doll."
They shook hands. That evening, William ran home after school. He searched his father's office for the perfect thing to bring back to the dollmaker. But he was scared his father might notice if something too valuable was missing. So he looked for something he could fool the dollmaker with. He found a golden painted rock on the bookshelf. His father would probably never notice it was missing, and the dollmaker would never know it wasn't his father's greatest joy. Proud of himself for his clever trick, William walked back to the dollmaker in the morning. He handed him the rock with anticipation.
"This is not your father's most prized possession,"
said the dollmaker, throwing the rock to the ground.
"I do not like liars. If you want me to make you a doll, come back with your father's greatest joy."
That night, while his father was at work, William searched high and low for the most expensive thing he could find. He opened the safe to find solid gold cufflinks. He surmised they must be worth a fortune. Surely the dollmaker would want these. The next day, he returned to the dollmaker with cufflinks in hand.
"Is this what you believe to be your father's greatest joy?"
asked the dollmaker.
"Yes,"
said William. The dollmaker examined the cufflinks.
"I still don't believe you,"
he said.
"and now I'm growing angry. I leave in the morning. This is your last chance. Tomorrow you will bring me your father's greatest joy, if you want me to make you a doll."
Growing desperate, William ran home with his cufflinks as the sun went down, hoping to find what the dollmaker required. He burst into his father's office to find him home from work, toiling away at his desk. "Where were you, son?" asked his father, smiling. "I was worried. Well, what would I do if something happened to you?" A chill went down William's spine when he realized what he'd just heard. You see, his father's greatest joy was him, and he couldn't very well give himself to the dollmaker. He resolved to go back to the shop in the morning and tell the dollmaker the deal was off. The dollmaker was packing up the shop as William approached.
"I'm sorry,"
said William, as he looked one last time at the beautiful dolls.
"I cannot give you my father's greatest joy, after all, because my father's greatest joy is me."
"Oh, but you can,"
said the dollmaker, his face turned hard as stone.
"That's how I make all my dolls.
William's blood went cold when he looked at the dolls again. Finally, he could see them clearly. Every doll had realistic, terrified eyes like children trapped and frozen and scared. He tried to turn and run, but his body stiffened. It was too late. The Dollmaker had his new doll, and William's father lost his greatest joy. The caravan traveled down the road to a new town, this time carrying William, just another doll on a shelf. Sarah, the artist that could paint the future. Don't turn off the lights. Ever since Sarah was young, she always had a power she had kept secret. Whatever she drew came true. Every day, she played with her best friend Elizabeth. They'd play on magical creations that came straight from Sarah's imagination. But as the girls got older, they grew apart. Sarah threw herself deeper into painting, while Elizabeth played sports and started hanging out with her friend Jessica more often. However, the two still maintained a tradition of meeting up in front of the school and walking home together. Until one day, Sarah waited outside for Elizabeth, and Elizabeth never came. And then it happened again the next day. After days and days of Elizabeth not showing up, Sarah confronted her at school.
"Why won't you walk home with me?"
she asked.
I walk home with Jessica now. It's no big deal. Sometimes things change.
Sarah cursed at Elizabeth and screamed hateful things. Heartbroken, she ran home. She grabbed an old drawing of the two of them and tore it in half. The next day at school, when Sarah went to apologize to Elizabeth, Elizabeth didn't recognize her. She simply looked at her with a blank stare. Later that day, she noticed Jessica whispering something in Elizabeth's ear as though they were talking about her. She became enraged again. That night, she taped the drawing back together so Elizabeth would remember who she was. But then she made another drawing. Jessica was poisoning Elizabeth's mind, and she had to be stopped. Jessica didn't come to school the next day. Elizabeth remembered Sarah again, and without Jessica in the picture, the two met up in front of the school and walked home together once again. They hung out like old times in Sarah's room. Sarah was ecstatic to have her old friend back. But when she went downstairs to get lemonade, Elizabeth discovered Sarah's drawings. As she flipped through the drawings on Sarah's desk, her life flashed before her. She saw drawings of their childhood, meeting up to walk home after school, a ripped photo taped back together. But it was when she saw the last drawing that her blood ran cold. She ran out of Sarah's house and down the street to Jessica's house, where she sprinted up the stairs. She walked into Jessica's room, and there she saw her. Jessica was lying on the bed with no mouth. It was the last drawing she had seen on Sarah's desk. When Sarah came back with lemonade for Elizabeth, she panicked. Her drawings were strewn about, and Elizabeth was gone. She knew that Elizabeth would never forgive her, and she couldn't live with the despair of knowing that her best friend hated her. Then and there, she ripped up every drawing she'd made, erasing herself from Elizabeth's memory for life and putting Jessica back to normal. She went to school the next day, a stranger to her best friend, and she never drew again.
This is the story of the scratches in the closet. Don't turn off the lights. It was the dead of night. The house was quiet as Stacy lay asleep down the hall. Suddenly, she awoke to the sound of something in her closet. Doors rattling. She mustered up all her courage and slinked out of bed and down the hall, breaking into a run to get to her parents' room as quickly as she could. Groggy, her father followed her toward the closet to investigate the noise. The two of them slowly opened the closet door. But nothing was there. Stacy slept peacefully the next few nights, until she was woken up again. This time, the sound was different. From behind the door, she heard a rhythmic scratching, like someone carving into wood. The door opened just slightly, and through the cracks she saw two red, glowing eyes. The scratching continued. Scared she'd be seen, she lay still, pretending to be asleep until the morning. When the sun was up, the noise was gone. She grabbed her dad to check the closet. On the inside of the door was lettering in a strange kind of language she couldn't understand, scratched into the wood. Stacy's dad was shaken. He installed security cameras all over the house. They locked up all the doors. They closed every window. Nothing would get in or out without them knowing. Stacy slept soundly that night, until she heard the scratching again, scratching on wood. Unable to stay put, she bolted. The family fled outside and called the police. The cops searched the whole house. Then they reached Stacy's room. In the back of the closet, they discovered a hole. It was scratched through the wall and led to nowhere. It was dark and cavernous and deep. Where did it lead? What beast had made it? Would it come back? Stacy's dad had the hole boarded up and covered with cement, ensuring that nothing would come in or out again. But Stacy never slept the same again.
If the thing found its way in once, couldn't it find its way in again?